Hello, this is Miss Mary, and what we are going to do today is we're going to make some faux stained glass using some UV resin and our 3D printer. And this is really cool because you can print whatever it is you want to print, and then you can fill it in to be whatever colors you want to. So I love this because the possibilities are endless. So I'm going to go show you how to set up your file, and then we'll 3D print it, and then I'll show you how we get all of our colors and fill it all in. And then at the end, I will show you some of the testers and mistakes that I made along the way. All right, so first thing you're going to need is a pattern. So what I did is I went to Pinterest and looked for some inspiration. Keep in mind you're going to want a simple pattern that's got big open expanses for you to fill in with your resin, and it's easier for the printer to print. Keep on the lookout for AI generated stained glass images that have approximately 800 little pieces here. You're not going to want to mix all of these different colors and pour them and print them and all of these things. So big simple shapes here. What I eventually came across was Puffer Snoopy here. We are in the middle of the polar vortex, and so I thought this would be a cute idea. So what I did is I went and drew Snoopy here, and then I drew him on my iPad, and then we're gonna go send him over to, he's in Corel, but you can put him in any program here. So I got Snoopy drawn, and I've got Woodstock drawn here. Now, what I did is you're gonna want big open expanses in your design here. So see, like I didn't put in his little, there's only little lines here to show his paws and stuff. I left them out because they're just going to cause problems. The same thing for his hat here. I did not extend them all the way down. I left them open. It's easier for the resin to move around if I do that. I also thought about, I left him because Snoopy's fairly big. I thought about taking out our little design here and just having one sleeve, but I ended up leaving this. But you probably could get away with it if you wanted to. So, but you're gonna want big expanses for your design and not a bunch of little sections here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this design and save it as an SVG, and then I'm gonna open it over here in Bambu Studio. Now we're gonna do File and Import, and we're gonna go find it on my desktop here. And when I do this, see, Woodstock does not come in here like he's supposed to, so I had to save him by himself. So we're going to do File and Split, and then we're just going to delete this one, and then we'll do File and Import, and then we can import him by himself. Whoop. And then that way it comes in. Sometimes Bambu Studio doesn't always like to import SVG files. Also, if you correctly size your SVG file in your first whatever program you're using here, it will come into Bambu Studio in that same size. I like that because my brain, this is inches up here, so we can see, you can see how big he is up here in inches. My brain does not work in millimeters, which is what you need for 3D printing. So then you're just going to arrange whatever file you have onto your plate here. The only thing I like to do here is change my walls here from classic to this one because it does better with smaller sections. Also, you're going to want to make sure that your design is nice and fat. It's not gonna want to 3D print little skinny lines. It doesn't do well. Also, that didn't come in correctly, so we will get him, and then we can just duplicate this ladybug's for a different project that hopefully we're gonna do sometime. So arrange however you want to. Slice your plate. I do PLA matte. I like the matte black. It doesn't show your lines as much when you print. Slice your plate, and then we will print him. I am so sorry. I've got to come to you with a little non-tripod. Oopsie, I forgot to mention. So when Bambu Studio imports your SVG, it defaults into 10 millimeters tall, which is a bit taller than you're probably going to want. So come up here to the scale tool and unclick uniform scale. It's clicked by default. And you're gonna wanna make these, I've been making them 5 millimeters tall. You can make them shorter, you make them 3 or 4. I'd probably make them at least 3, but I've been making them 5 because as we're going to talk about later, I like to have a little bit of a divot here. If you want to fill them in completely, I would recommend making them a bit shorter because you're going to use a lot of resin if not. So, sorry about that. And just like magic, here he is all printed. And don't worry, his eyeball's in there too. And his little friend is with him as well. So now we can go fill these guys in with resin. All right, so we're filming in a different spot in my basement. That's why things look a little different. And if you hear the hum, it's the heater because like I said, it's really cold in the basement. So we have Snoopy. What we are gonna use now is some UV resin of your choice. This is just what I've been using. And then we're gonna need our good old tape, our lamp, the curing lamp, whatever brushes you're gonna want to use of your choice, silicone brushes, whatever. And then I'm a big fan of the toothpicks. They're good at picking out dog hair, or glitter, or whatever other things get into your resin if you need it, or if you wanna pop an air bubble. I would just highly recommend making sure you get a natural toothpick and one that isn't dyed, because the dye can sometimes come off. Now, I am using this. I just happened to find it on Amazon. I will leave a full link to everything in the description below because it's kind of a lot. But this is what I have been using now. You can use alcohol inks. The only time I did, I just ended up with a very liquidy, sticky kind of mess. So that's why I went with these colors. I also have already mixed colorants. This is a pearl one, which they've mixed with mica powder. And then I've got these guys, which are just already mixed up colored resins. So whatever choice you want to make for turning your resin a different color than it is. You could also use any number of glitters and micas. There is a lot on the market for these. Also, I have a heat gun. That's what I've been using to pop my air bubbles. We're working on, this is white paper. We're mostly just working on it so that y'all can see. You can work on whatever surface you want to. Now we're gonna take this is our UV resin tape, and we're gonna work in little sections. The reason I'm not doing this all one right after the other is because on the back of the piece, you will then end up with lines where your tape overlaps. So we're just gonna do this in little pieces as we go. I like to have my side that was on the plate is the prettier side, I think. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my tape on the back. This is the side that was up in the air. I think it's not as pretty, and that's what we're gonna use on the back. And so I'm gonna take my tape here, and we're gonna tape off one of the sections here. And I like to burnish down to help prevent any like leaks and such. They do happen on occasion, but, and then I have an extra piece I cut too short to start with. I'm gonna put it over here. Okay, so I've got my 2 pieces down, and then I like to tape them just to prevent our little piece from wandering off anywhere. So this is our UV resin, and we're gonna pour a generous amount into our cup here. We're probably gonna have to pour some more, and then we're going to make Snoopy red here. So we're gonna use rose, and it's gonna look like we are at a crime scene. So we are gonna mix up and mix and mix and mix and mix and mix and mix. Okay, so we've mixed together. We have like a watery reddish color here. Now, the one thing that this is very different than like just pouring the resin out of the bottle is this is a lot liquidier. So keep that in mind. Also, if you're in a warmer spot, which we definitely are not in today, it'll be more liquidy. So like if I were to hit it with a heat gun, it'll be more liquidy. In the cold, it's gonna be a little less liquidy. And so we are going to go plop it on. Now, when we mixed in all of our color here, we have very efficiently mixed in approximately 8 billion air bubbles, as you can see. So in a perfect world, you can mix and let it rest. We're gonna pop it with the heat gun and let it rest. And we are be mixing up a lot more of this. I underestimated how big Snoopy was here. So in a perfect world, you would mix it up and then let it rest for a bit so that you weren't putting in approximately 8 billion bubbles, but it'd be okay. All right, so I like to fill it partially full. It will kind of sink in the middle, and I like that look because I think it looks more natural and less resiny. But you can absolutely fill it up 100% to the top if you want to. That is my heater coming on. We're a little closer to it so you can hear it today. Alright, so I drastically underestimated, but we are gonna pop these air bubbles real quick, and then we're gonna mix up some more and we'll repeat. That didn't get all of them, but we'll let it rest and the more will come up to the top. Also, baby wipes are highly needed for this. It can help get anything off your hands, clear the brushes, spills. They're just really nice to have on hand. All right, I've mixed up and we are gonna repeat by pouring into our little sections again. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but this is the one we did first, and I've hit it with heat, and then this is the one I just poured. And you can already see how many fewer air bubbles this one has just by giving it some time to rest. So resting is very important. Also, I have a drip here. And so if you have a drip, you can just wipe it up before you hit it with the light, or else that drip is gonna be part of your design. All right, so I've got my little sections all filled in. Now we're gonna cure them. And the biggest problem with UV resin is that it will shrink when it cures. So what we're gonna do to help prevent that is cure it slowly. So this is from Resin Rockers. And so what we're gonna do is when the wattage, for the first little bit here, I've got the wattage turned as low as it goes. And so I put it on for 120 seconds on the lowest wattage that it can go. And every 20 to 15 seconds, I'm just gonna increase the wattage to its maximum amount. The reason that I do this is because if you don't, you're more likely to get it pulling away from the corners than if you don't. It's not the end of the world if it pulls away from a corner, but I think this makes it look a little prettier. It does take a little bit more time and it is annoying because after we do this, then we're gonna cure it for its full 2 minutes. So this is optional to help with the shrinkage. Also, another thing to note with both colored resin, glitter, anything that you're putting in this resin needs light to cure, and we're essentially blocking it. So it's going to take longer to cure than if you just had a clear resin top that you were putting on a finished item. This will take longer to cure. This will, and then any of these like really opaque ones, like these guys, or I had white for an eyeball. It took a long time to cure because we're blocking so much of that light. Okay, now we're gonna put it up to the full highest amount, and then we're gonna cure it for, I do two of the 120, so two minutes and 40 seconds. All right, so while Snoopy cures here, I'm going to mix together the white for him. So I'm gonna do some clear UV resin and then 1 drop of this white and see how that looks. Okay, so we are cured to the touch here. Now what we're gonna do, like I said before, resin needs light to cure, and we are gonna flip him over to the back, and then we're gonna put the back under the light for 2 minutes. Depending on how much light gets through, if I were to take the tape off right now, I might have a goopy mess. So we're gonna leave the tape on there, and we're gonna cure some more. This time it's just the 2 minutes at as high as it can go. All right, so we've got everything cured, and we're gonna peel off our tape. There we go. Now also keep in mind that this tape has got a blue tint to it, so it's gonna make it look a little bit different than when it's just out in the regular light. And here we go. Teachable moment. That's not cured. See how it's all goopy and loose? So we are going to go put our tape back down, smooth everything out, and then we're gonna go put it back under our light. All right, so I got 2 more sections done, and now I think we're gonna do this section and then maybe Snoopy's face here. But it's the same thing each time. I'm gonna tape off my section, fill in my resin, and then cure. With these two being more opaque, they're going to take longer to cure under our light. So I'm going to do the slow cure like we did with the other ones, and then 2 minutes, and then we're going to check on them and see how sticky they are and if they need more time. All right, so this is where we are at. Got the nose done, and the white actually cured pretty quickly. This nose, because it is black, did need 1 extra little bit. So now we are going to finish up. So we're going to do the nose up here. All right, so we have Snoopy's eye here. So what we're going to do is we are going to put it in where we think it should go. Alrighty, and we're going to do the same thing where we've already got it mixed up. So we're going to pour in our color and our resin here, and then we'll just resin around his little eyeball here. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing again where I slow cure this side, and then we hit it for 240 full power, and then I'm going to flip it over and cure the back side. Alrighty, so that should be us all finished up. Alrighty, so that is our finished Snoopy here. How cool is this? So now I wanted to go over a couple of things. Now, I knew resting the resin would give me less air bubbles, but I had no idea how much better it would look. So these two, I rested a lot because I was yapping and filming. See this one over here, I didn't. I don't know if you can see, but you can see the surface bubbles that are there. They aren't here. So highly recommend resting your resin. Also, because we had so many different mixtures of red, there are some differences in tone, which is to be expected. And then the white, I was amazed how fast it cured, but it is less transparent, obviously. So some of them, depending on, I have no idea what, are less transparent than others. And these guys did much better with air bubbles. You can't really tell. Now, it is not perfect. We do have some spillage and leakage on the back here, but I don't know. I kind of like when they're not perfect. It means it was made by hand and not made by a, I don't know, a factory. So now I did want to show you some of the testers I did, mostly so you knew how much work that goes into some of these videos. These are all the testers. I did want to go over some of my vast little samples I've made for this video. Now, when we would first cure this, I told you to go slow and work up your wattage. If you don't, I think you're more likely to get this. See the big crevice here? What that is the resin the resin pulling away from the side of our 3D print here. I feel like it's less likely to happen when you slowly cure it than if you go and cure it as fast as you can. But do understand some of this is just going to happen because UV resin shrinks when you cure it. So that is what happens there. Also, I think if you need to do it all in one go. Don't do some, cure it, and then do it again. So you can see my giant air bubble I have here. That's what happens. This was a clear coat, and then I put the purple on top of it, and every time I did, I ended up with these big air bubbles. Also, you're going to do better with big open sections. I've said this before, but these little tiny sections, you're more likely to end up with air bubbles. We did 2 with the hat today, so keep that in mind when you're picking your design out. Now, I did buy some pre-made colored resins in the boxes. This is what I'm talking about. See, they're already poured and colored in here, and there's nothing wrong with them. I got a couple gripes with them. One is that rarely can you buy just one of the colors. You have to buy the whole set. So if you just want the blue, then you can't do that. Now, the other one is that for the most part, this was one of the reds from that section. That one, I didn't like the way it looked. Now, I did end up actually using one of them on the dog. See how this one is transparent? The original one that came with the dyes was not. And obviously, since the rest of my dog is transparent, I wanted him to be transparent as well. And this one isn't. So I ended up using one of the oranges from one of the pre-made kits. So they're nice to have around, but I would use them as an alternative, not necessarily as your main source of color and resin. And that goes back to make samples of your resins and what they look like. So you could see here, this was one of my purples that just wasn't very purpley. Like, it's not very purpley, especially when you compare it to these two. And then some of them are really opaque. So see how this red is 2 of the reds from the dye set that I showed you. One of them is very opaque, and one of them is transparent. So depending on the look you were going for, they may, and see, and this is the dogs again. So this is one of the ones from the dye set, and this is one of the ones of pre-made orange. So depending on what you're going for, but be aware and do testers so that you can get the look you are going for. They're not all guaranteed to be transparent. So keep that in mind, and I made lots of testers and I put them together to see how they would mix, to see what would happen. I had quite a lot of fun making all sorts of testers and trying them out. This one's kind of cool, and I hope to come back to this, but this is Mylar in the UV resin, so it kind of gives it a different look. And then I think these are bubbles. I did, and I flash cured them. So that's just clear resin, and then that's some, I think mica. So, oh, and I did do micas. These are mica powders. So you could do, and see how they look different on one side than the other. So that's another option. So there's a lot of different options and ways you could do this. You could also, any number of glitters. These are actually Elmer's glue. So you have lots of options. I did actually want to talk about stitch here. These sections out here are actually one of the pre-mixed mica powder UV resins, and I just diluted it to make it look more like a frosted outside frame. So, and this was the white eyeballs I was talking about. These took quite a while to cure because they're so dense. So I hope you liked our tutorial, and I hope you learned lots and lots and lots and make faux stained glass for the world. So if you have any questions, please let me know down in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer them. Please like, subscribe, help support everything. I'll be back with another project soon.